Vasu. So today I'll be talking about it's a very general discussion. It's nothing about particularly about any project or the things that we do in the lab as a software development. But I really want to talk about the software development part as a journey and things that are involved in this, which we can call it a CIMS, that is challenges, issues, management of the issues, and then solutions, of course. So I'll just go through one by one, each one of it, just to discuss here the issues and the challenges as well. So before I go into it, this will be, I try to make it a very general presentation in terms of not to bore you with more of the text. So yeah, so that was my thought process into this. So before I go into the presentation more, I really wanted to talk about the software, teams and everything in general, because you guys know me already. I've been here for almost close to 3 years. So rather than talking about my personal stuff, just wanted to talk about a software group, software teams in general. So just starting off with this one. So it's like we work hard, just always attached to the espresso concentrate, just the coffee and everything, try to meet the deadlines, and that's what we do in general. And then we work hard, yet we never know the future, because the most of the projects, most of the time when we work on the project, we tend to see, or we see only the tip of the iceberg. Project is an iceberg sort of a situation, where we get to spend to develop it, the cost is involved, the scope and resources, everything is involved. But then most of it is beneath the surface, where everything goes into the project, the whole collaboration, adaptation, reflection on it, and the work culture of the team that affects the project. And in doing so, some of the work also goes down the drain. I mean, that's part of it. It's nothing to cry about, but yeah, some of things don't work out, or most of the things rather don't work out. So we just, those things sometimes do not work. But yeah, still the team goes on, the software teams, yeah, work on it, and try to finish the deadlines, hopefully. Not always, maybe, but yeah. So now, trying to work on we'll talk about the challenges, starting with the challenges, challenging in the software development projects, which often, come into in the journey of the project, which starts mainly with some of the requirements. So this is sometimes called scope creep as well, and then changing requirements are the main issue, which is being dealt with throughout the software industry. And it's nobody's mistake, but sometimes it happens, the change of perspective, the change of requirements, the time changes, the time taken to finish the project, it goes so long that yes, the requirements has to change. uh, and then the adaptability has to be there within the software group, software teams, to adapt to the changes and requirements. So that's one of the major challenges about the changing of the requirements. But yeah, so what are the challenges? It's basically the fundamental reasons why we establish the requirements for complex system. It is always be a difficult technical and organizational problem. And yeah, so there are some combative methods how to make sure that these requirements do not affect the project that much. That we will deal a little bit later. So right now, just going through the challenges itself. Again, this is linked to the first point itself. The perception also changes from time to time. Perception, we mean to say, again, this can be dependent on certain drivers. And what could be the drivers of the change? The technology changes over time. If it's a year-long, 2 long-year project, the software field is so dynamic that every other day new thing comes into play. And with the advent of Chat GPT, we all know the releases of all the bots, the AI, the things that AI can do, write its own codes and stuff like that. That is drastically changing. So technology changes, so that basically brings in some other requirement, changing the requirements. Organizational changes, this is again could be related to the resources in the project, which happens time to time. Market changes, that is basically the requirement of the market or requirement of the end users, is also changes with the time. And then some economic changes, it could be the budget issues, it should be some other things that comes into play. Sometimes end users or clients who gave you the project say, yes, we have this much of budget, maybe they were not clear, but over the time this the cost, it goes so high that yeah, they are not able to deal with it. So they say, no, we cannot do much more. So yeah, so all these things are the drivers of the change which go into the requirements, ever changing requirements, which basically software project has to deal with it. This is a very famous for photograph which goes into in every other, you may see it, but this is also the related to the perception itself, how the customer explained it. This was the first time they explained it, and the second, how the project leader understood, like again, the requirement was this, but they need, okay, I just need that. And then how the engineer designed it, so that's the main thing, right? Like how they design it, again, and then how the programmer wrote it. So this is completely from where we started and where we are at. And then comes to the next phase, that is how did they document it, which is practically nothing. So and then how the operation installed it, and then how the project support, help desk supported it, and then exactly how and what actually customer needed it. So this is from one point to the last point. The perception has completely, also it's not changed, but yeah, it's not been clearly moved over from one point to another, which is also a case of miscommunication, which is also one of the main challenges, that from going from one point to another, how these things should, affect the project. And this is basically is a great challenge. So after this, after that, perception changes. There's another challenge which project often deals with it, and this is also very true with the software projects. Basically, is the race against time and resources both. Software industry is notoriously known for lack of not lack of resources. It means people move on to next jobs, especially if you're working in academia or then industry. So software programmers tend to move on quickly. So that is a big challenge, and how to manage those resources is a big challenge. And this basically affects then the time itself, because people keep on revolving on the project. Some people leave, so how to carry on that project, that affects the timeline, that affects the deadline itself. And I just mentioned to you the documentation. Like if somebody left, if there is practically no documentation there, whoever is taking from there doesn't need, didn't know what was happening in there, and so they just again start from the scratch. And then again, what was explained to them, they go on developing something else what was needed. So this is the race against the time and resources, again a big challenge for any project, per se, more in the software project, more so. Then comes the maintenance struggle. So maintenance struggle is not just the maintenance of the infrastructure, but also about maintenance of. So sometimes happens the projects, not sometimes actually, project moves always in some phases. So phase one, phase two, phase three, and sometimes they say, okay, up until we'll work until phase three, and you give us the product to the end user. You tend to give it maybe just for testing or some other users, and then they come also like, okay, no, this is not what we wanted. So you go back to the same thing, and you try to maintain the whole thing from scratch. So it goes back to zero. You start again. Otherwise, and still, it's not that the product is finished. You still have to go to the end goal, but you still go through those phases again, like maintaining of the codes. Yeah, this is debugging and all those things. So this is part of the project journey anyways, but that's also one of the identified challenges in the software project. Then this is it's a big thing, again, also in the software industry, is neglecting testing. So testing is by far the most critical thing which has been identified in software. It's a code. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it just doesn't. And honestly speaking, we don't even know sometimes why it just stops working. We have to sit down, just debug line by line, sometimes actually line by line. Okay, this is going wrong, now let's print it out, let's do that. So and to avoid that, yes, testing is really important. And this is what we have also established, or got to know very well practically doing it in our projects that we are currently doing in the lab as well, that testing is, and having a testing suite, which is really important for for all the projects in the software industry for sure. And it is a critical thing to have that done. And without testing, and we have done it. Like I myself have done it. Like, okay, yeah, if just basic testing, pass it over. No, it doesn't work. We go back again. So this is again the challenge of doing everything. And then comes the technical debt bill. So as very well explained by this figure, so this guy is saying, no, this guy is saying, okay, have the wheels, you'll be very efficient about it. I say, no, thanks. We're really busy right now. We don't want to do it. We just need to move fast. But he doesn't realize, the person doesn't realize that, yeah, if I have the wheels, I'll move much, much faster. So having the technical debt is basically you know getting to or identify the things which are really important for the success of the project early on. This one is really important for the success of the project. So identification is really important. Even if you're getting a little delayed, you need to identify, yes, if I get this done early on, the technical debt will be much, much less. By technical debt, it means like, yes, if you don't do it, you will fail in the end. Everything which you have done until now in the project will do nothing. So yeah, so we need to realize basically software team, and actually both teams, yeah, the end users and software team both need to realize what's the technical debt and what's the bill of it, what's the cost of it. So that's also one of the challenges. Frankly, this is one of the least talked about challenges in the software industry. Nobody cares much about it till now, about this thing. And then comes the communication. Everything in the project from the first phase to the last phase has to do with communication. And there are, and if the communication doesn't happen, as we saw in that picture, like from the trees, what was said and what was done is basically, we get nothing, and we again have to go back to do all those things. So glaring gaps in the communication is one of the major challenges in software projects. So this is one of the things that we need to rectify early on, establish a communication plan. Actually, I'll talk about the combating the challenges, but yes, communication is one of the main challenges. Just to give you an example here is, yeah, like it's sometimes they say it's not a bug, it's a feature. We say, no, it's a feature, and the user say, no, it's a bug. I didn't want it like this. So it becomes a bug rather than a feature. It actually becomes a bug itself. So this is part of the miscommunication. Maybe user didn't want it, we wanted it, we want to do something else, so we put it up there. They say, no, I really don't want, I did not ask for it. So that's the part of the communication plan that needs to be established early on, and it needs to be followed through. Again, it has to be followed. Now, these were, up until now, these were the challenges which I identified: requirements change, perspective, communication gaps, technical debt bill, then neglected testing. So now these are the major challenges in the software. Now we should talk about how to basically combat these common challenges in the software development, and how should we do it for each one of these gaps. The answer is, which is now being formally adapted into the software industry, is the software project management. So it is part of the project management itself, but more so curtailed or customized towards the software project. And what do we do in the software project management, and how do we combat these challenges? This is where the SPM, or the software project management, comes into play. So each one of it is saying that, starting from one point to another, process of managing, allocating, and timing resources to develop the software that meets our requirements. This is the first thing. And then the end users and developers, that means the stakeholders, need to know the length, duration, cost of the project in general. And then the software project needs to be planned, monitored, and controlled accordingly. And how do we do that? This is basically with the help of eight steps, or 8 steps. That is, beginning from project identification, that is, identify the need of the project definition, define the project outcome early on. Project planning, like plan the project phase wise with proper scheduling, proper resource allocation, everything which comes under project organization, resource allocation, project scheduling, track reporting and controlling, and finally the project termination. And each one of these steps comes into play for different challenges that we were talking about it. One thing which is missing, we can say that it is missing here, is the communication. But why it is not there is reason is that the communication has to be part of each and every step. So we cannot actually identify this project or the outcomes without communicating. Definition, same way, we cannot plan the project by not communicating within the stakeholders. And that's why it's not really outlined here, but it has to have a place in each and every step. So this is what the software project management broadly means. And how do we do that? Like combat. So this is exactly, so each one of these is divided into three phases. The first phase is project identification, definition, and planning, and this can help resolve the challenges of the changing requirements. How? Because once we define the project early on, of course it will still change, but we have to have a minimum viable product on table. Yes, this is the minimum viable product, and this is what the stakeholder or the end user will need it, and to be at least called as usable product. So we have to negotiate that, we have to put that on the table, and then work towards it. And then, of course, as I already said, the phase must start with communication and continue throughout the journey. And another thing also is that, so that we are able to deal with the requirements changes, we should set the expectations, methods, frequency of communication as well. The moment communication breaks down, everything goes down south. It's like it is very inevitable in every project that we have done or we do in general, the software industry, anybody who does that. Because again, and that this we have seen most or so, we can use as a personal example during COVID as well. We were trying to work remotely, especially the software team, and we were not able to meet with the team or some other group members as well. So this definitely affects. So this has to be made a point about the communication. Then comes the next phase, which is project organization, resource allocation, and scheduling. So project organization and resource allocation basically go hand in hand, which can tell you, helps in challenging and pertaining to resources and managing deadlines. How many people are needed on the project? How many people need to work on the project? Is it like just a one-person job? No, one person cannot do a complex project. Then okay, 2, 3. How many people can we bring in? And this is also very agile or a dynamic thing, because project requirements may change over the time, over the phases. So we need to be very aware of that. That yes, now it needs more people than we can put in. If some other project needs us, we should be able to move them to some other things as well. Now, and this is basically the part of sufficient research and planning beforehand itself, so that we can identify the roadblocks early on, and don't be surprised by roadblocks that we anticipated them. So this is basically, we should be able to foresee, yes, this can happen. And there are certain things which do happen in the software project, like inevitably, like resource allocation, people leaving the team, people going away, or some other deadline issues, some debugging process taking some too much time. So those things needs to go into the scheduling of the project as well, which we try to do in the lab is by maintaining or identifying the deadlines by Gantt charts. And this is also true in that, yes, deadlines may not be met, but we still have, a foreseeable future that, yes, this is what we need to finish it. So we need to have those Gantt charts established, those scheduling needs to be established. So this is how we deal in this phase. And then comes the final phase, that is tracking, reporting, and controlling. So this phase involves whether the project results are in actually accordance with the project plan and deliverables or not. Again, we keep going back to the requirements. Yes, was this an MVP, or minimum viable product? Does the end deliverable meet that thing, those standards or not? So proper action is to, take time to correct the unacceptable deviation. There might be some deviation happening, sorry, over the time, and then this may not be acceptable by the end user or by the software team as well, both ways. So, and then controlling, again, as I mentioned, it is the one of the most critical things, maybe, that we need to test it and view testing as a critical activity. Allocate sufficient time and resources for it during the project phases. And this is, we have also learned in our project, through our projects as well, very, very important. And then tackle the technical debt issue as well. So as we move along, we should be able to identify that, yes, if I even some time can be taken, software team can or should take some time to identify those things, should take some time as well to think about the changes that need to bring in, which may help them down the road. um, and then probably implement them into the software itself. This needs to be again communicated to the end users or the clients that, yes, we are trying to implement this, and please, we need some more time because this may help in the deliverable, may help in the final product itself. So this needs to be done in this phase. So yeah, so these are the three phases through via which we can combat these challenges through software project management. Again, a disclaimer here is that I'm not saying that this is the whole software project management. No, I'm just covering very broadly the phases, the steps that goes into this. Of course, there are sub steps, sub phases, and everything within these phases that we can discuss as well. But yeah, for this presentation, I'm just sticking to these three major phases. Now, after these phases as well, which is still a part of, project management, which is the golden rules of the success, which is basically the team play. The any team, again, it's not just the software team or one person, two-person working on this, and it should be more of a team play between the end user, client, from where the requirement is coming from, and the developer team. They all should be in one consensus. They should be a team to work towards that goal. It should not happen that, yes, it's two separate teams working now, and then the project leaders needs to watch out for that as well. Of course, avoid scope creep. Like, that is basically the requirements, ever-changing requirements. We really need to be watchful of that. And then plan the project properly, gain consensus on the project outcomes, make reasonable resource requirements. And then, of course, very important, I've been saying throughout the presentation about the communication, keep the stakeholders informed. So these are the things that we should, watch out for, look for, and then implement these things. And then just trying to conclude with these steps, what it takes to conclude the project successfully, and also trying to create a working environment for everyone is like professionalism, one of the most important features of any team. Be professional to the work, and we should be mindful of the fact that, yes, people who are working with us, and we should be mindful that, yes, my ethics, my professionalism, should, or lack of professionalism should not affect the project. That's also one of the most important features. And then, yes, take the responsibility, which often helps, right? Yeah, it works on my machine. We often do that, but yes, we should not be doing that. If it's not working on anybody else's machine, that means it's not working. So perhaps your machine is the only one where it works, which does happen. So we need to take, as a developers, again, about the responsibility of the project, the things that we are delivering, we need to be mindful. Of course, then the focus, should be very clear. The end goal should be very, very clear, that this is the end goal where we want to reach, and within this timeline. The focus should be in the core developmental things, rather than putting in some fancy features for anyone. And again, it goes both ways as well. The other part of the stakeholder team should also be very mindful. Yes, no, this is the main goal. This is the broad picture. That is where we want to lead this project towards to. Other features, small improvements, fancy features can also come into the way, but yes, let's try to focus and try to finish it towards that. So that's one of the main things as well. And then, yeah, it's getting things done. So this is also followed from the previous point itself, that if you have a focus, then you get things done. That, yeah, work on this, work timely manner, get things done. Both teams or whoever end users, stakeholders, everyone sitting together and get things done to make it a successful project. And then lastly, of course, team play was the first point. Teamwork is the last point. So it has to be a teamwork so that we can take the whole thing somewhere in a way that this leads to a successful project. So yeah. And yeah, that's all. Just wanted to bring out these things to the forefront of the software project management issues, mitigation, solutions. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Vasu.